Okay, so here it goes. The first thing I learned was that the .NET platform and C Sharp are two different things. One is a programming language, and the other is a platform for multiple programming languages. Languages like Virtual Basics.NET and F Sharp can communicate with each other on this platform through program references. But now, what is a program reference? Okay, this is when one program is referenced by another program, irrespective of whether the programming languages are the same or not. Very interestingly, I also learned that there's something called .NET Core, which I assumed is different to just saying .NET. No lie, this was about to confuse me. But I stayed calm and just read the passage for a couple of times, and eventually things made more sense. Okay, so here's the gist. Prior to .NET Core, .NET could only be used on Windows PCs. Now, if you wanted to make use of .NET, but on a Linux or Mac computer, you had to make use of Mono. And what was Mono? An implementation of .NET. But then I had to understand what was meant by the word implementation so that I could get a clearer picture. Because somehow I think in pictures that helps me form patterns and that helps me understand stuff a bit better. Then I said, okay, let me do a Google search. What does implementation mean in programming? And this is what it said. In IT, the word implementation usually refers to installing a new hardware or software system or application. It can also mean the inclusion of a specific technical specification, software component, or software standard. For example, software development tools contain implementations of programming languages. Now, from this very long definition, and from the fact that Mono is not a framework on its own, I got to a very simple conclusion, just for the sake of not getting trapped on the first paragraph. What I already knew was that Mono was just an implementation of .NET. It never just made use of the features from .NET, but existed independent of .NET and had its own compiler, runtime, and framework implementation. Mono is the same as .NET, but for other platforms. Then there's a thing of platform versus framework. Now, .NET was referred to as a framework and a platform. So here the question was, which is which? Well, it turns out that both, apparently. And there's a statement that can clarify that. It basically says that .NET is a platform that includes frameworks. And the word framework is used to refer to the class libraries and runtime environment. Two things. So this means that there are possibly other things the .NET platform is made up of apart from frameworks. Now here comes the point where in this situation you could either come up with a great epiphany or fail miserably, especially now when we want to look at .NET Core. And where does .NET Core fit in all of this? Think of it as a framework that was a redesign to .NET, which allowed .NET to be open source, cross-platform by default, more modular and lightweight, better performing, and cloud optimized. Now, today, .NET Core is simply called .NET. This is starting with .NET.5. I also learned that .NET Core or just .NET allows for interoperability of other programming languages, but the language has to be a .NET language, and this can include languages like C++, C Sharp, F Sharp, stuff like that. Now, The word in interoperability, hard to pronounce and hard to understand, both ways, bro. No lie, I had to refer to Google. Now, the word interoperability in programming basically is the ability for two or more languages to interact as part of a system frequently. This means passing messages and data between potentially very different languages. Now, from this very long definition, again, what I got was communication between different languages. The rest for me was irrelevant.